Hi, Lindsay.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Um, I just wanted to say thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really appreciate that, giving your time to speak with me. Well, interestingly, I've asked you for a couple of reasons. First one being you're an actress
Yeah.
like myself. So I'm interested to hear about the work that you've been doing of late and whatnot. But I think more interestingly is that you've been making your own work. And I very much admire anybody who makes their own work because I know how challenging it is to do, how
Yes.
very taxing and hard that can be. It's not an easy feat pulling off any of your own work for sure. I think a lot of people would like to hear about that.
Yeah.
So I
No,
think I think what I would like to ask first off, if I may,
of course.
is what it is first off that made you pursue filmmaking. What was your real drive behind making films?
I I had always loved writing stories when I was younger. But that wasn't kind of into sort of film, it was just about stories. And
Hmm.
then I'd been working within the kind of independent film industry for a while. I've been making lots of different short films as an actor and a couple of feature films. And it wasn't a case of I thought, oh, I could do that, because it's an incredible skill to bring a story to life on film.
It
And
is.
it's
It
oh,
is.
there's just so much that actually goes into that. But
Hmm.
I think I'd kind of come to a point in my career where not only had I been incredibly inspired by other filmmakers who had gone on quite a similar journey to me, that had
Hmm.
either been an actor before, or they'd been completely, something else. And then they'd gone into filmmaking and actually done really well. I'd kind of come from a theatre background as well, and I'd written 2 one-woman shows. And I thought, well, these are transferable skills. Why can't I make a film? And
For
then
sure.
and then very quickly I realized the reasons why people don't make films. But they were just walls to break down, as far as I was concerned, that I was going to start making films, and I was going to figure out how to do it.
So interesting. That's a small segue. What are the roadblocks or difficulties that you did face when you're very first starting out with this?
Okay, so I think the main important thing is to surround yourself with people that you absolutely trust to bring your vision to life. Being surrounded by people that you trust, that initially share your vision. Filmmaking, whether you're making massive multi-million pound films, or something on a zero budget, it's all a collaborative process. So being surrounded by
Yes.
the right people, you know
Hmm.
um second hurdle, once you've got all of those right people, is um you know cutting down to the bare bones of it. It's money. Like, what is your film, and can it be made on this or this or this? And looking at that kind of realistically, the last film that I actually made, because of the nature of the film, and it didn't need a big it wasn't kind of all singing or dancing. It was particularly led by the cinematography, so I knew that if I got the cinematography right and the sound right, then that was going to be the narrative. But yeah, money and people, that's what you need.
Yes,
But not
absolutely agree.
necessarily money. I've seen some really great pieces of work made on a real micro budget, but people is the most important
People
thing.
are
Yeah.
absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
fundamental to it. I absolutely agree with you. So tell me, in your opinion, Lindsay, what is harder? Is it getting
Okay.
started or is it being able to keep going?
It's that um it's the same thing is when you leave drama school and leave training, and you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you expect, I suppose, lots of things to come your way, and you're full of ambition. And it's the same way
Hmm.
when you start making your own work and your own projects, is that you have to go into it with a huge amount of energy, otherwise it'll never leave the ground. It's keeping that momentum that's the
How
hardest
do
thing.
you do that? How do you keep the momentum?
I think for me, it's having the right, again, it's the right people around you. It's knowing when you actually need to be quite vulnerable and say, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Or, I mean, it's going to be hard, but this is harder, or I don't think I can do this. And you have this kind of ego problem. The
Hmm.
ego is the thing that drives you forward, going, no, I'm definitely going to make it. But then that ego becomes really vulnerable, and you think, am I actually a bit shit? And, am I kidding
Yes.
myself? Am I kidding myself that this is going to be any good? And you need to be able to be vulnerable in those moments, to be able to brush yourself off. And if you need it, is to reach out to people, and they're not there to, big you up, but they can certainly say, well, you can either feel sorry for yourself and lie down and die, or you can push further with it.
So what do you do as a writer, as a
Mhm.
filmmaker? What about when inspiration is waning? What do you do when you feel creatively sapped? How do you make sure that you stay fresh? So you started a script, for example, and you're at a roadblock, you don't know where to take it. Does it just get pushed to the wayside? And if not, how do you keep going with that or finding inspiration?
For me, if I particularly, because with my film Puppy, I'm now developing that into a feature. And what happens for me particularly is, if I try and sit down and write something and go,
Hmm.
okay, this is what's going to happen, or it's A, B, and C, then nothing will happen. But what I tend to do is, if I'm looking at a project, I start seeing the world through that project's eyes. And so
Right.
there might be a sentence on the television or a picture that I see. And because I'm seeing it through the film's eyes, or this project's eyes, or that project's eyes, suddenly everything starts fitting into place. And I start just cherry
Hmm.
picking life. I cherry pick at
Yes,
things in life, and it all goes into the script. There might be a camera angle that, you do steal ideas. I mean, I'm not talking about actually
for sure, for
lifting
sure.
a line,
Yes.
but nothing is original anymore. And
Hmm.
so every concept, every idea, every, piece of music that might influence you, that all goes down. You never stop thinking about a project. But when you start concentrating on other things that are in your life, suddenly ideas do manifest somehow.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would agree, and I do know that you are multi-talented, aren't you? So, in the everyday, you're doing lots of different creative things, from puppet making, is
Oh
that
God, yeah,
correct?
yeah, yeah.
To maybe even some animation work that I saw posted on social media that you've done, or
Oh
or
yes,
whatever
yeah.
it is. So I know that you've got your fingers in a lot of proverbial pies when it comes to creativity. So that probably helps, does it not? Doing
Yeah,
different creative things and not always focused on this one thing, but bringing those things in somehow.
100%, 100%. My brain never stops, and it has to have different outlets. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so for me, because I do a lot of painting, and just recently, my friend had a birthday, and he decided to just paint her portrait. I haven't painted a portrait in about 10 years, but it was massively cathartic for me. And I found that once I'd actually done that, and I'd finished it, and I was all ready for the next thing then, because I'd taken my mind completely off, emails and work and business,
Yes.
been writing and all of that kind of thing, and I was ready
Hmm.
to go to the next thing. But I find it really, really difficult to switch off.
Is there a particular genre that you tend to favour when writing a script? And I ask this because I know that you personally have a bit of a penchant for horror,
Yeah.
uh, serial killers, anything that's a little bit
Yeah.
dark or taboo.
Yeah.
So does any of that reflect in your own writing or filmmaking style?
Oh, 100%. My narrative through all of my work is, it typically follows a protagonist that is seeking something than um, other than themselves, or other than this situation that they're in. They're trying to escape something. Um,
Right.
Now, my genres do tend to mix. They tend to merge massively within the psychological. It's predominantly psychological. I'm very interested in the human mind, and a massive, massive fan of true crime.
I
Um,
know this.
I know, evidently, because I'm so enthusiastic about true crime, it infiltrates into my writing, and that kind of
Hmm.
psychological drama, psychological thriller, and horror. There's nothing more interesting to me than the fragility and the mystery of the human mind and the human condition. And so I try and kind of tap into that, tend to like to and navigate towards is really looking at the darker depths of the human mind.
So there's no comedies on the horizon then at the moment?
Not at the moment. It's not to say that I don't do a bit. I mean, I do love comedy. I find it really difficult to write comedy characters. I can think of a really funny one line and I can write you a sketch to get to that funny line, but to actually create a character, it doesn't interest me as writing for a psychotic cult leader.
So you definitely prefer the realm of the dark arts. I think we've established that. So now, okay, we are going to be talking about your new short film, Puppy, but just before we do, can we just briefly, if possible, look back at the other two films that you have made? Would you just tell us what they're called, roughly kind of what they're about?
The first film I ever made, which was on a micro budget, and when I say micro budget, it really was. I had a really, really, really small crew. I used LB Studios, which is Lee, who's a good friend of mine.
Right.
And he did me a really good deal. And that was my first venture into making a short film and bringing something to life. It's called Lions and Tigers and Bears.
Right. Okay. Interesting title. Any reflection of what the film was about at all?
The man that plays the lead in Lions and Tigers and Bears, he had a song called Lions, Tigers and Bears. And it was about what the music industry was at that time, about this kind of predatory, incestuous business that it is. Yeah, it just follows two characters. It follows the protagonist, which is Alfie, who's in a band, and he wants to leave the music industry. And it's the relationship that he has with his manager.
Awesome. Okay, is there anywhere that anyone could see any of that? Is it online anywhere? Any trailers?
Yeah, it is available. I think the actual whole film is available online now. It's available on YouTube. If you go to my channel, it will be there.
Awesome. You heard it here first. Well, it probably wasn't first, but yeah, go check that out. That's Tigers and Bears, Lindsay Bennett-Thompson. And so the film that came after that, what was that called and what was that about?
Okay, so that is Puppy that came after that, and that's a good few years later. I sat back, and Puppy did take a very long time to write.
How did it all start? How did it start? Let us know how it all came about from the beginning.
Oh, right, okay. I'd been working on a horror film with the amazing Oliver Park, who writes incredible horror. And he really inspired me I told him about this idea, and he really inspired me to just go away and have a go at it. I was living at my mum's house at the time, and my mum has floorboards all in the house. And I'm lying in bed, and I could hear the dog tottering along the floorboards. And so I always heard the dog tottering along the floorboards, and she would always jump up on my bed. And I just had this thought of, what if I wake up? What if I open my eyes and it's not the dog on my bed?
What a thought to have. Yes.
But there, all of a sudden, now I must let you know that the finished result of Puppy is nothing like that idea. But that was the seed. That was the seed that was planted of, there was this character, there was this person in bed, there was this thing, there was that. And then the whole thing, the whole concept grew. The more people I spoke to about it, they said, well, I really want to know a bit more about the mum, and I really want to know what's going on here. And and so then it grew and grew and grew. And then I discovered because Puppy is inspired by true events. Not the true event of in my bedroom, but a real person.
Yes.
And
could you just tell us what that event is, or at all? Or?
Yeah, I mean, nobody's actually ever asked me what the film is inspired by. And the film is inspired by a story by a lady called Andrea Yates. Now, you can look her up. She's very well known. And it's such a sad story that this lady, she was in a cult a long time ago. And she ended up having pretty horrific postpartum depression and psychosis. And unfortunately, she ended up killing all of her children.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah. And I remember studying her. I remember seeing this documentary on Andrea Yates and just going, gosh, this is the saddest story I've ever heard. And just being really struck by the sadness and the weight and the fact that this poor woman went through all of this. And I wanted to know the reason why she'd killed these children and what she did. And I just went really far down this rabbit hole. And so, yeah, that effectively, became the catalyst for Puppy. And I sent the idea off to lots of people that I trust, and they really loved it. And there you go. It was born from that.
Right, and the writing process, just tell us a little bit about that, how it went, how long it took.
Oh, gosh.
Dare I ask how many rewrites it went through?
It had about 10 rewrites.
Right, okay.
That is minimum 10 rewrites. Because again, I was sending the ideas off to people that I trust, to different directors and different writers, and they were feeding back of saying, I'm not really sure about this and this doesn't work. I really want to know a little bit more about this person. What are we supposed to feel in that moment? And oh gosh, that was a really frustrating time because there were so many answers that I didn't have. And that's when I realized I actually had to go back to the drawing board. About 3 times I had to just scrap the whole thing and go back again.
So how long did, yes, I can imagine how disheartening that is, yes, for sure. Yeah. How long did it take from start to the finish, roughly, in terms of getting this as a finished script?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
So you've got your finished script, it's all written. How does one go about casting, or how did you go about casting with this? Was it an easy process? Did you put it in the hands of somebody else? Were you full on yourself? What went on there?
No, with the casting, I knew that I was obviously going to play Laura, who is the protagonist, because when you're an actor and you're a writer, as long as you've got another director, you might as well write a part in for yourself.
Absolutely.
So I was going to play Laura, who's the protagonist. I already had in mind the cult leader that I wanted, which was a really good friend of mine called Nick Cornwall. We'd worked together on a few different projects, and he particularly had the look that I was after, but also I knew that he was capable of doing the role. And Nick and I live very closely to each other, and we could really work on the character, and he could come to me and ask lots of questions, and because I had to build a whole cult, I had to from start to finish. So if he had any questions about, well, what do I believe in and where did I come from? So I had to write Nick this enormous backstory, for the character. I brought Mark Zammit on, who's a great director up from London. I'd seen some of Mark's work before, and we'd had a bit of a relationship online, and we met up in London. I'd sent him the script. He really, really liked it. And I said, I've got kind of 2 prerequisites with this is I'm in it and Nick's in it. And everything else was down to him. I mean, I was still involved in the casting, and he put the casting call out, and we got so many incredible submissions. I mean, so many. It was so hard to pick. But then it's looking about who you've already cast and who looks right next to them, or do they look too similar? Like, where's the diversity with it? And that is essentially what things came down to.
Right. So you mentioned briefly earlier, you said that the way you had initially envisioned it is different to how it is now. So I was going to say, obviously, you've seen the film back now.
Yeah.
And it's back from post-production. How was it for you in seeing that then, from your initial idea 2 years ago, and the dog on the floorboards?
Yeah.
How has it sort of changed, and for the better?
From finally watching it now, it's exactly like the script. So it's exactly how I saw it. And Mark and I worked together so much on his vision for it and my vision for it, and we were on the same page that way. And he really listened to some of the ideas that I had with regards to bringing out the kind of psychosis of the character. And he was just really generous with his time about how he achieved that. We brought on a composer called Benjamin Simons, who just, once that music went on it, I was like, shit, this is like a proper film now. And then we had the color grading done by Richard Oakes. Now I've got a 60-minute finished film that I'm really happy with. It's hard because I've probably watched that film about 200 times, so it's hard to see it.
It must be so strange, so just like you say, having that acorn a couple of years ago and now seeing it all come into fruition, seeing the full end product. Is there anything, dare I ask, that you would not change, but you possibly wish had been different, or you would have approached something different, or is it even worth looking at things like that, so that this was a learning curve? Or
there has to come to a point in a film where you go, right, you just step away from it.
Of course,
you have to just step away. And then if there are things that you would have changed, then you just learn from that. Those are all lessons that you take with you onto your next project.
Well, I do know, and you said earlier again, you touched on that you do want to develop Puppy into a feature film. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So this could almost kind of have been a trial for you in that respect, and anything that did need sort of looking at or what have you can be taken into this feature film.
Puppy the short film is almost the backstory for Puppy the feature film.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
It informs the. I mean, those are the ideas that I've got going around in my head, because I thought, what's a really interesting story off the back of that? And really, you see the full story unfold with Puppy as a short. So instead of really just trying to pull it apart and make it, a 90-minute version of that, is there other things that we can delve into? Is there other parts of that story that we can look into? And that's where more and more ideas are kind of coming to me.
Is there any sort of time scale on that? Obviously, being in lockdown and with the world the way it is at the moment, it's a very bizarre time, but
so I think, I really need to have a good solid idea for it by the end of the year, which is what I need. I need some kind of deadlines, really.
Right.
So you never know. Hopefully it won't take me another 2 years.
Well, it takes as long as it takes, doesn't it? And bear in mind, this was for a short and you're looking to make a feature. So if it takes that time again, then so be it, More importantly, where can people watch the trailer for Puppy?
It is on Vimeo. If you look under Lindsay Bennett-Thompson, it will be in my channel.
I also know that you've done another film.
Oh, right. Okay. It's called Enter Nirvana. And it follows the tag. Do you want the tagline?
Yes, go on.
Okay.
Give it to us.
A woman's journey to find peace leads to esoteric depths. There you go. Exactly.
Like it, right. Okay, awesome.
With that was the first film I've ever directed. And so I really wanted to, with that, delve into, like I said, the cinematography and the sound as the narrative with it, and kind of use much more of visual language. As you know, Fanny, in my films, there isn't a lot of dialogue, and I kind of like it that way.
You like your visuals more than all the words.
I let the camera tell the story for me. That isn't lazy writing, by the way.
Well.
Maybe it is.
Different styles.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's a short. I think it's at the moment it's only about 6 minutes long. Right. And I think there's only about 2 lines in the whole thing. But from what I've seen of it at the moment, it's looking absolutely beautiful. So
just out of interest, how long did it take you to write that one with the 2 lines?
Well, don't forget, I write all of the, I do all of my own storyboarding.
Right,
and
okay. We'll
and
let
I
you off.
do write everything that you see. So when people aren't talking, even when you're writing a script, even when you're not talking, you're still painting a picture.
Of course.
And so with Enter
Yes.
Nirvana, with that actual script, there was, it was a 6-page script with 2 lines in it. So
Wow.
the crew that came on board really loved it, because for them that was really interesting to go into, because it wasn't
They can
weighted
get their
down by
game on,
dialogue.
can't they?
Yeah,
In terms
yeah,
of doing what they do, making things look beautiful, great shots,
yeah.
etc. Yeah, for sure. Right, when is that due to be sort of released, and what's the sort of plan with that?
The actual full edit is finished, and I'm not quite sure what to do with that one yet.
Is it going down the festival route? Do we know yet? Or
I think I would like it to go down the festival route. I'm not quite sure where it fits at the moment. I think what I'll probably do with Enter Nirvana is show it again to people that I trust and get their opinion of where it should go. Because again, don't forget, with the festivals and everything, it's massively expensive.
you see, this is a thing, because up until last year, I didn't know myself that you had to pay for festivals.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's other people out there that also do, but I just assumed they're all free, wanting to just look for good work.
No.
I was very naive. I thought, what the hell? You've got to pay these people to sort of debut your work. But that is how it works. And yes, can prove very expensive, because you're not just sending off to one, you're sending off to multiple.
And there's no guarantee either. Once you pay, that isn't that you're in the festival.
Oh, wow, right. Okay.
No, because absolutely not. So you will pay,
gosh,
however much it is. Some are, I think the cheapest, I mean, especially if you get in early, then it's cheaper. So if a festival is next year and you sub now, then I think the cheapest I've paid is £16. And then the most expensive at the moment was 52. And there's absolutely no guarantee of getting in any of them. So I mean, there are lots of festivals that are for free. There are festivals that are run out of people's back gardens. I don't want to disrespect anybody, but you might as well go in for, if it depends what you want. If you want to carry on making films and getting your work recognized, then go into festivals that have a larger degree of recognition.
So look, you've done 3 films now. So you've already got a good body of work in terms of creating your own stuff. What's next? Is it working on Puppy and seeing that through to the end with a feature film? Is it making more work? Or do you not even know right now?
I always like to juggle both. It's part of filmmaking was taking control of my own career, as well as being an actor like everybody else, having an agent and waiting for the phone to ring effectively, for work. Now, before lockdown, I did have some stuff that was going ahead, and who knows? I had some contracts that were signed for work that was supposed to be filmed in, I think, March. But again, nobody really knows what's kind of going on, what's going down after,
of course, the
lockdown. So I think the only thing that I can do right now is the things I'm in control of. And the thing that I am in control of is my own work.
Yes.
And so for me, I'm concentrating on that. I'm concentrating on developing some more writing as well. And just doing what makes me happy, I think, is the most important thing during this time. And
I would advocate that, yes.
And I've also started developing another short film.
Of course you have.
And that was just an idea that came to me after watching a short piece of dialogue, and I thought, oh my god, I think I've just had an idea, but I couldn't think of the ending. I just could not think of the ending for it at all. And then I was listening to a true crime podcast, and I went, oh my god, there's my ending. Do you know what I mean? And this kind of goes right the way back to what we were discussing before about how things are made. And it was while I was painting, I'm listening to this podcast and I went, oh, there it is. So the brain is always ticking away.
Right. That sounds exciting. So there's another potential film there in the making.
Yes. Yeah.
There. Oh, exciting. Really, really, really good stuff.
Thank you.
So I guess for people who've been listening, I guess I've got to sort of, start to round this off. But what I do want to know from you, the age-old sort of question of anyone who's been there and done that, do you have any advice or suggestions to people that want to make their own work? Because I know there are so many actors and non-actors out there that want to create their own work, want to write their own films or series of things, and they just have no idea where to start. It seems so massive. So what would you say to those people that have never done it before, are scared as hell, don't know where to start?
Okay. I think the first thing that I would do is get a good, solid idea. Write everything down. Depending on the genre that you're making, have a look at other people who've made it before you. People that you admire, people that you can go to. Are there other indie filmmakers? Are there people making web series that have done it before you, that they're accessible, that you can tweet or you can send them a quick message just saying, I really like that work, I'm hoping to do this. And people are very, very generous with their time. That's how I've built all of my relationships up. If I've not worked with them, I've reached out.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
And I think most of the time people are willing to help you if you're helping yourself first.
100%.
So if you've got your project there and you're passionate and you've got something to actually give, people are more willing to help you, for sure.
So so get your idea, reach out to people, and then I would look at, what can this be done on? Can it be done on a shoestring? Can you do it with friends? Can you actually just go out and make this? Don't be too massively ambitious. By that, I mean, don't have things that need loads of CGI or big explosions.
Yes,
if this is your first ever, unless you've got loads of bloody money.
Yes,
if
of
it's your
course.
first film, start with something that is accessible within your means.
Keep it simple, because simple doesn't have to be bad, does it? I think keep it simple.
It's got to be reachable somehow. Especially if you're starting out, and if reachable for you right now is you and a group of other creatives with an iPhone and a passion and an idea.
Yes.
Have a look on YouTube. There are so many brilliant short films that are shot on an iPhone. Check them out. Have a look, be inspired, and it will push you to start making work.
Yeah. No, I agree. Absolutely. So getting a good team around you, having that solid idea.
Sure.
And finding and networking, asking people for support, asking people for help, and like you say, even if it's just on an iPhone, just bloody going out there and doing it, finding a way to do it. Absolutely.
It's like you do, Fanny. Just small. If it's a small sketch, if it's a small idea, if it's a tiny piece of dialogue, is doing it, getting out there.
Yeah. That's my adage, that I adopt now, is it done is better than perfect a lot of the time. And finding perfection, you're prolonging, you're procrastinating, and you're not actually getting anything out there. So totally agree with you on that. So finally, I think what people all want to know at the end of this, where can we find you? They certainly do. Where can we find you? Can you give us your social media links, what you're on, where you're prevalent, and even your website as well, so people can check you out?
I'm not ever going to make things simple. So the way to find me, it's all, my name is Lindsay Bennett-Thompson. However, all of my social medias are still under my maiden name. So my website, which is, that's www.lindsaybennett.net. And it's spelled.
And that's a double T on the Bennett, isn't it? Double
T and a double N, and Lindsay is spelled LINDSAY.
Lindsay Bennett.
.net.
And that, www.
I mean, that really has sort of everything that I'm currently working on and all my past work as well. Instagram, you'll probably kind of find a real mishmash of all of my work. So that's art, that's my dog, that's my poor husband.
I would definitely say to check out Lindsay's Instagram. It's eclectic, but in an arty way. It's
very much
eclectic. So yes, and I like it. So definitely check her Instagram out.
But yeah, my Instagram is at LYNSY Bennett, and Twitter is LINSY Bennett. Come and say hello if you want to. Reach out if you want. If I can offer any advice, like I say, I'm still very much at the early stages of my career, but I'm all for, you know, sending the lift back down.
You are. You're very supportive. I've seen that yourself on social media, and you really like to support people that are doing similar things to yourselves, that are being brave, fearless, and making their own work, and just doing something, you know, creative, just putting something out there in the world. And I see how supportive you are of other people that are doing that. So I'd fully suggest that other people reach out to her. I think best bet, if you do struggle to sort of follow on social media all those different lenses, is to get on her website, because you'll see all of her stuff there, all of the latest stuff that she's up to and whatnot. But see, she's a woman of many talents. She's definitely worth following. She's very interesting. She's very humble, I think, and down to earth. She's vulnerable and she's supportive. So fundamentally, she's a pretty great person. So I would say, yes, definitely give her a follow. And check out her work. And I hope it's inspired other people to do what you're doing, because I think that is the way things are going now, but especially for actors. It's just stop waiting for the phone to ring and, you know, face the fear and start making your own work. And that's exactly what you're doing, and you're already working on yet another. So go you.
Thank you. Go you. Go us.
Thank you so very much for giving me your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy, even though you're in lockdown, so you're always busy getting on with other things. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Well, I wish you every success going forward. And I dare say I'll speak to you very soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.